Our anniversary morning was supposed to feel special, but it did not. I had set the table in our house in Cedar Harbor the night before. I wore the blue dress Aaron once said he liked. I waited for him to come home early like he promised. Instead, I got a short text that felt like a slap. He wrote that he forgot the date and had already agreed to meet his ex, Brianna, for closure. He said it like it was nothing. My hands shook. I stood in the kitchen looking at the cake I made, the candles, the empty chair. I felt small, like I did not matter. I asked if he was serious, and he said I was too emotional. Then he grabbed his keys and left without looking back. I listened to the door close. The house went quiet, the kind of quiet that hurts your chest. I sat down for a moment, but the pain was too strong to sit still. I wiped my face and took a picture of the table, as if I needed proof this was real. My phone buzzed again. A friend asked if I wanted to go out that night. I whispered yes. I stood in front of the mirror getting ready, not because I wanted to impress anyone, but because I refused to cry alone all night. My heart still hurt, but something inside me changed. I decided I would not wait for someone who chose his past over our present. I met my friends downtown. The music was loud, the lights warm, and for a few minutes I could breathe again. They hugged me when I told them what happened. One friend said we should take pictures, so I would remember I was not invisible. I hesitated. It felt strange to smile when I felt broken, but I let them take the pictures anyway. We laughed, and this time the laugh was real for half a second. They posted some photos and tagged me. My phone started buzzing with likes and comments. I looked at the screen and saw Aaron typing, then the typing bubble disappeared. He had time to meet Brianna, but not to talk to me. My chest tightened again. I put the phone face down on the table. I told myself I would just enjoy the night, but I could feel something building, like the start of a storm I could not yet see. The call finally came when I stepped outside for air. Aaron's voice was annoyed, not sorry. He said he heard I went out and asked why I would do that on a sensitive day. I could not believe what I was hearing. He said Brianna needed him, and he had to be kind. He told me I was overreacting and making things dramatic. The words cut deeper than silence. I felt anger rise, slow and steady. I remembered every time he brushed off my feelings like dust on the table. I told him I did not want to argue on the street. He kept talking over me, explaining himself, never asking how I felt. So I hung up. My hands were still shaking when I picked my phone back up. Notifications were climbing fast. People were sharing the photos my friends had posted. I saw strangers I did not know leaving comments. It felt strange, like my life had stepped out into a bigger world without me asking it to. Then an alert popped up that froze me in place. Aaron's mother was calling. I had not even spoken to my own parents yet. I answered, and her first words were not what I expected at all. She asked me, in a cold voice, why I was embarrassing her son online. She said Aaron told her I went out on a date on our anniversary. For a moment I could not even speak. Then I saw the photo she meant. In one picture, a man walking behind me looked like he was leaning close. It actually looked like we were together, even though I had never seen him before in my life. The internet had taken that picture and built a story of its own. I tried to explain, but she did not want to hear. She said maybe Aaron forgot the anniversary because he was stressed and unhappy. That word, unhappy, echoed in my head. It felt like the world had flipped, like I was suddenly the villain in my own life. After the call, I sat on the curb for a moment and tried not to cry. I opened the comments again. More people were sharing the picture. Some strangers defended me. Others judged me. Then my phone vibrated with a message from Aaron saying we needed to talk about my behavior. I felt something inside me harden. For the first time, I was not only hurt, I was done staying quiet. I got home before Aaron. The house still looked like a frozen party that never happened. He came in after midnight, smelling like another place. His face was tight with anger. He did not ask how I was. He asked why I would go out and post pictures like that. I asked him, calm and steady, if he had a good time with Brianna. He said yes, then added that it was nothing serious. He said she needed him and I should understand. Hearing that broke something clean inside me. I realized I had been begging for basic care. I told him I was tired of feeling like an afterthought. He tried to turn it around, saying people were now questioning him at work because of the photo and that I caused trouble. I felt strangely quiet. I told him one sentence. Tomorrow everything changes. He looked confused, maybe even a little afraid, because I was not yelling anymore. I did not explain. I went to our room, sat on the edge of the bed, and let myself feel all of it. By morning, the decision was clear in my mind. I was done waiting for him to treat me like I mattered. I woke up before sunrise. The house felt heavy, like it knew what was coming. I did not shout or throw anything. I took out a small suitcase and began to pack only what was truly mine. As I folded my clothes, memories came in waves. The canceled dates, the rolled eyes, the jokes that were not jokes. I saw the full picture for the first time. It was not just about one forgotten anniversary. It was about many days when I had been easy to ignore. I collected the printed photos from trips where I smiled but felt alone. I put them back in the drawer and left them there. They did not belong in my new bag. I left a short note on the counter that said I needed space to think. Then I stepped outside into the cold morning air. My friend Monica had already texted that I could stay with her for a while. I felt scared, but also lighter. As I drove away, my phone lit up again and again with messages from Aaron asking where I was. I did not answer. For the first time in a long time, silence belonged to me, and it felt like the beginning of strength. Monica lived in Ridgeview, about 30 minutes away. When she opened the door, she wrapped me in a hug that I did not know I needed. Her guest room was small but warm. I set my suitcase down and finally breathed without shaking. Over coffee, I told her everything from the start. She did not interrupt. When I finished, she looked at me with sad eyes and then hesitated, like she was holding back another truth. She told me she had seen Aaron weeks earlier at a restaurant. He was not alone. He was with Brianna. She had not told me because she did not want to hurt me without proof. Hearing it now connected pieces I had tried not to see. My heart hurt, but my mind became clear. The anniversary night was not an accident. It was a pattern. Monica showed me the photo she took that day, unsure if she would ever use it. There he was, leaning forward, smiling in a way I had not seen in months. I felt tears form, but they did not fall. Instead, I whispered, "I need to know everything." I texted Aaron only 2 words. "I know." Then I turned my phone face down and waited. Aaron's reaction came fast. My phone lit up nonstop. First there were angry messages asking what I thought I knew. Then they turned into long paragraphs full of excuses. He said I was misunderstanding, that he met Brianna only to help her move on, and that it was harmless. Each message shifted the story a little, like sand that would not stay still. I watched the bubbles appear and disappear, and a strange calm came over me. For once, I did not rush to defend myself. I let him talk and reveal himself. Then something unexpected happened. A new notification appeared from Brianna herself. My chest tightened. I opened it slowly. She wrote that she did not want to be part of lies anymore. She said Aaron had told her he was unhappy in his marriage and almost single. My hands went cold while reading. She added that she had proof and was willing to show it. I stared at the screen for a long second, then typed back one word, send. I felt fear and relief at the same time. Whatever came next, I knew the truth was finally moving toward me, and there was no stopping it. Brianna sent everything. Voice notes, screenshots, dates, times. In the recordings, Aaron sounded gentle, not like the sharp voice he used with me. He told her he still had feelings. He said I did not understand him, and that he stayed only because it was easier than leaving. Hearing those words broke something old inside me, but it also woke something new. The truth hurt, but it was clean. There were no shadows anymore. I saved every file into a folder I named Reality. Then I listened again, more slowly, noticing how he always painted himself as the victim. I realized how often I had accepted less and called it love. When Aaron called again, I answered. My voice was steady. I told him I had everything, and I was done arguing about facts. There was a long silence on the line, the kind that says more than words. He asked to see me. I said no. That night, I lay in Monica's guest bed and stared at the ceiling. I did not feel weak anymore. I felt tired, yes, but strong in a simple, quiet way. Tomorrow, I told myself, I would take the next step without fear. The next step was the lawyer. I never thought I would sit in an office talking about my marriage like a business problem, but there I was, hands folded, telling the story to someone calm and professional. She listened closely and asked for the folder. I gave her reality. She studied it, then opened financial papers I had never seen before. She explained that some bank transfers did not match our normal accounts. My stomach flipped as she traced them with her finger. The money had been moved months ago into an account with letters that matched Brianna's name. It was like seeing another layer pull back. The lawyer spoke gently but clearly. She said I had been carrying more than hurt feelings. There were also secrets with real weight. I felt shock, but also a strange sense of focus. Every answer I had avoided was right in front of me now. When I left the office, the sun felt too bright. I stood on the sidewalk and realized I had crossed a line inside myself. There was no going back to pretending. I texted Aaron only one thing: we needed to talk in person soon. But this time, the talk would not be on his terms. We met in a small cafe with bright windows so nothing could hide. I chose the place on purpose. I arrived first and sat where I could see the door. When Aaron walked in, he looked nervous, like someone who had lost a script. He tried to smile, then sat across from me. He began with soft words, calling me overly sensitive again, trying to shape the story his way. I did not argue. I simply slid my phone across the table and opened the folder named Reality. He stared at the screen, then at me. His face changed, as if he had been standing on wet ground and finally realized it was mud. He said he could explain, but each sentence he began died halfway. I asked him to read the message from Brianna out loud. He refused. That refusal told me everything. For the first time, I did not ask him why. I did not ask what was wrong with me. I simply said, "This is not the life I want anymore." He begged then, not out of love but fear of losing control. I could see it clearly. I stood up, thanked him for proving the truth without even trying, and walked away into the bright afternoon. Back at Monica's apartment, I felt the weight of the day settle in my body. I did not collapse. I rested. I made tea and sat at the table, letting my thoughts line up in order instead of attacking me all at once. My phone kept vibrating with messages from Aaron, switching between anger, sadness, and promises. I put it on silent. Monica sat across from me, quiet but present, which felt like the greatest kindness. We talked about next steps. Not revenge. Not winning. Just safety, clarity, and dignity. I packed the folder again, then added copies in the cloud, so nothing could be lost. That night I slept for the first time in days, a deep sleep without dreams. In the morning I woke up with a clear head. I realized that pain had stopped being chaos and had turned into direction. I was no longer standing in the wreck. I was walking out. On the kitchen counter, the sun lit up my phone. A new message appeared from an unknown number. It was Brianna again. She said there was something else I needed to see, something she had just discovered. My calm heart began to race again. We met in a quiet park where the paths curved between big trees. Brianna looked different without makeup, without the mask of confidence I had seen online. She seemed tired, too. She handed me a small envelope and said she had debated bringing it but felt I deserved the whole truth. Inside were printed screenshots and a note in Aaron's handwriting. The note spoke about starting over and waiting for the right moment. It mentioned moving money and moving forward together. It was clear and careful, like something planned, not confused. For a second the world tilted, then steadied. Brianna apologized, not in a dramatic way, but in a simple one. She said she had believed a story about our marriage already being over. I believed her, not because I wanted to, but because the facts matched. We sat on the park bench in silence for a while, two women connected by something neither of us asked for. I told her I did not hate her. I hated lies. She nodded. As we stood up to leave, I realized the anger I carried was changing shape. It was no longer wildfire. It was controlled heat, and I would use it to build my future, not burn myself. After the park, I went straight to the lawyer again. I spread the new papers on the desk. She looked at them, then looked at me, and nodded slowly. She explained my options clearly, step by step, without pressure. Each word felt like a brick, building something solid under my feet. We talked about accounts, property, and my rights. It felt strange to discuss my marriage with numbers and signatures, but it also felt necessary. I remembered how many times I had ignored my own needs because I did not want to make trouble. Now I saw that trouble had already been made, just not by me. When I left the office, I felt taller. Not proud or cold. Just steady. On my way back to Monica's, my phone filled with new notifications again. People were still sharing the night out photos, but now they added strong messages about self-respect and second chances for oneself. It amazed me how one picture could become a turning point in a life story. I climbed the stairs to the apartment with quiet steps. At the door, I paused. I realized I was not afraid anymore of being alone. I was only afraid of ever losing myself again. Aaron asked to meet one last time, not in anger this time, but with a voice that sounded almost lost. I agreed, but only in a public place and only for closure. We sat at a table near the window again, like before, but everything felt different. He talked about memories, early days, shared jokes, trips we took. For a moment my heart softened at the past we once had, but then I remembered the present we were truly living in. He apologized, but even in his apology, he kept circling back to how hard things had been for him. I listened, because I needed to know I had heard the full story before walking away. When he finished, I said I forgave him, not to make him feel better, but to release myself from carrying his actions inside me. Then I told him clearly that forgiveness did not mean returning. His eyes searched mine for weakness and did not find it. He asked if there was any chance, any door left open. I said no. It was not spoken in anger. It was spoken in peace. As I walked out, I felt the weight lift. My life was not ending. It was beginning again, this time with me at the center. After that last meeting, the silence in my life changed. It was no longer the silence of being ignored. It was the silence of space to think. I moved into a small apartment near the river. The walls were plain and the rooms were simple, but they were mine. I set my few boxes down and stood in the middle of the living room, listening to the sound of water outside. I felt both scared and proud. I began building new routines. I cooked small meals for myself, walked in the evenings, and wrote in a notebook every night. I wrote what hurt and what healed. Sometimes I cried, but the tears did not feel like weakness anymore. They felt like cleaning out a wound, so it could close right. Friends checked on me often. Monica visited with coffee, and we laughed easily again. One evening, as I scrolled through my phone, I saw my night out photos appear again on a large page. This time the caption said, "The night she chose herself." I stared at the picture of me laughing, not knowing everything would soon change. That photo no longer looked like a mask. It looked like the moment my life turned in a new direction. Messages from strangers began to fill my inbox. Some were from people who had gone through similar neglect. Others just thanked me for speaking honestly without hate. I answered a few, carefully, not oversharing but not hiding either. One message stood out. A podcast host asked if I would talk about emotional neglect and self-respect. My first instinct was to say no. I had always been quiet about personal things. But then I thought about all the times I had stayed silent to keep the peace, and how that silence had cost me. I said yes. The day of the recording, my hands trembled a little, but my voice stayed steady. I told the story from my point of view, without insults, without exaggeration. I spoke about how pain can look normal when it becomes daily, and how hard it is to choose yourself when you have been trained to choose someone else first. When it ended, the host thanked me. I walked home feeling lighter. That night, the episode posted and spread quickly. People shared my words the way they had shared the photo. For the first time, my story was being heard the way it truly happened, and not twisted into something else. The next twist came when Aaron's employer reached out to him after seeing parts of my story spreading online. The financial transfers that the lawyer had found were questioned formally. He called me, voice shaking, saying this was ruining his life. I listened quietly. I had no power over those choices. They were his actions, not mine. For years I had carried the weight of his moods and mistakes, but not anymore. After that call, he stopped contacting me for a while. The silence confirmed what I already knew. I had been valuable to him as someone who absorbed consequences. Without me doing that, he had to face them himself. I did not feel happy about it, and I did not feel guilty either. I simply felt separate. I focused on my own life. I decorated my apartment slowly, hanging soft lights and placing books on shelves one by one. I chose colors I loved. I realized I had never asked myself simple questions about what I liked because I had been busy trying to please someone else. Each small choice became a step back to myself. The river outside kept moving, steady and calm, and I tried to match its patience. One evening, my phone lit up with a long message from Aaron. He wrote more than I had seen him write in years. He admitted the lies, the meetings with Brianna, the money, and the things he had said about me to others. He said he now understood that forgetting our anniversary had only been the final sign of something broken long before. I read every word slowly. A part of me felt sad for what we could never repair, but another part of me felt strong for finally seeing it clearly. He asked if there was any chance for us to try again in the future. I did not answer right away. I closed the message, made tea, and sat by the window. I understood something important in that quiet moment. Closure was not something another person gave you. Closure was what grew when truth stayed in the light long enough. I opened the message again and simply replied that I wished him growth and honesty in his life, but my path was no longer beside his. Then I put the phone down. There were no fireworks in that moment, just a deep, calm ending that felt right. The anniversary date came again, faster than I expected. I woke up that morning with a tightness in my chest, then realized it was not dread. It was memory. Last year I had sat at a table covered with food and hope, waiting for someone who chose his past instead of our present. This year I chose differently. I bought myself flowers and went to the river in the afternoon. I watched the light move across the water and thought about everything that had happened. The hurt, the confusion, the fear, and the strength that had slowly grown out of all of it. I realized I no longer wished to go back in time and fix that night. Without it, I might still be shrinking myself to fit into someone else's comfort. I took a picture of the water and smiled, a real smile that reached my eyes. I whispered a promise to myself to never again stay where love felt like waiting in the dark. As I walked home, I did not feel like a victim or a hero. I felt like a person who had learned to stand up straight, and that, I knew, had changed everything. Life became quieter, but it was not empty. I started to notice small things again, like the sound of rain on my window and the smell of coffee in the morning. I began taking classes in the evenings, not for a job or for anyone else, but because I liked learning. I joined a small group at the community center where people talked about boundaries and self-worth in simple, honest words. It helped more than I expected. One night after the meeting, I walked home and looked at the city lights reflecting on the water. For the first time, I did not feel like I was walking away from a life. I felt like I was walking toward one. My story online kept spreading, but I no longer checked every comment. I was not trying to win the internet. I was trying to live my real life well. Still, one thing surprised me. A school counselor wrote to say my story had helped some teenagers speak up about being ignored at home. I sat with that message for a long time. My pain had turned into something useful for others, and that mattered. It felt like the final proof that my voice had value. A local event group invited me to speak, not about anger, but about choosing yourself without hate. I almost turned it down, then remembered the younger version of me who stayed quiet and afraid. I agreed. On the day of the talk, I stood in a small hall filled with folding chairs. People of different ages listened as I told my story from beginning to end. I focused on the lesson, not the drama. I talked about how love is not proven by how much pain you can endure. When I finished, there was a soft, warm silence. Then people clapped, not loudly but kindly. Afterward, several came to thank me, and one woman cried as she said she finally felt seen. I walked home in the cool evening air feeling steady and calm. Later that night, I saw my night out photo again online. This time the caption read, "The night the story changed direction." I stared at it for a while. That picture used to hurt, then it became famous, and now it became something else. It became a reminder that one painful night can open the door to a better life if you choose yourself with clear eyes. The photo kept appearing in articles and posts, but I noticed something different. People no longer focused on whether I had been on a date. They focused on the strength in my smile, even though it had been shaky that night. The meaning of that picture changed with me. I printed it and placed it in a frame on my desk, not because of the internet, but because it marked the moment I stopped shrinking myself. One afternoon, as I was cleaning, another long message arrived from Aaron. This time it was not begging or bargaining. It was a confession written slowly. He admitted the lies he had told others and the ones he told himself. He said he hoped I found peace. I read it calmly. I did not feel joy and I did not feel rage. I felt distance, like watching a storm far away over water. I did not reply. I did not need to. My life no longer depended on his voice. I closed the message, opened the window, and let fresh air into the room. It felt like closing a book after finally finishing the last page, not because you hate it, but because the story is truly over. The legal process ended quietly. I signed the last papers at the lawyer's office with steady hands. There were no loud scenes, only clear lines being drawn. When I walked out of the building, the sky was bright and open. I felt lighter than I had in a long time. I went to my favorite bakery and bought a small slice of cake for myself. I sat by the window and took my time eating it, smiling at how simple and gentle the moment was. I realized I no longer carried the need to prove anything to anyone, not even to Aaron. The past was part of my story, but not the center of it anymore. That evening, I boxed up the last reminders from my old life and donated what I did not need. I kept only a few photos from good memories, not to hold on to him, but to honor who I had been. I looked around my apartment, at the plants growing by the window and the books on the table, and felt safe. Not excited or dramatic, just safe. And that feeling, I learned, was one of the strongest forms of happiness there is. The next anniversary came again, but this time it had a different meaning. I called it my new beginning day. I woke early, opened my notebook, and wrote a letter to myself. I thanked the version of me who stayed strong through tears, confusion, and lonely nights. I promised to never again beg for the bare minimum of care. I dressed, went to the river, and watched the sun rise over the water. The air was cool and clean. I thought about the girl sitting alone at the decorated table a long time ago and wished I could whisper to her that her life would not end there. My night out photos had once caused chaos. Now they marked the moment my life turned back toward me. I took a new picture by the river, not for the internet, but for my own memory. I smiled, and this time the smile felt full and true. As I walked home, I understood the simple truth at the heart of everything that happened. Sometimes the biggest change comes from one night when you stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself instead. That choice did not just change the photos. It changed my entire life.